lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to do my October wrap up for the first half of the month. Alright, so today is October 14th, so we are a little bit before the halfway mark, but I wanted to go ahead and do this today rather than doing it next weekend when obviously a whole nother week has gone by. So we have 7 books to talk about as well as one DNF. After I go through the reviews of those books, I will let you know what I'm currently working on and what I still need to get through by the end of the month. I will say that this month started off relatively strong, but so far has tapered off a little bit. But I am optimistic that it will improve because some of the books left on my TBR are 5-star predictions. Since I am taking part in Becca's Spookopoly this month, I will let you know if a book has fulfilled one of those prompts. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the book that I DNF'd. This is a little bit of a spoiler for a vlog that I did, so if you want to check out that vlog, a couple of the books I'll be talking about today are featured in there, and that book is Sundial by Katrina Ward. This book was for Becca's Spookopoly, the Dice Roulette, in which I rolled a 2, and so I picked a book that had 200 something pages. This book was actually also supposed to be for my Aurelium Adventure prompt, which was to have stars on the cover because it had the night sky in the background, so I still need to find something to replace this book with. When it comes to Becca's Spookopoly, I'm not sure if we can count DNFs or not, but I am. So, because I don't think I'll have time to fit another book in there, but who knows. This book follows a mother and daughter as they head into the desert. This desert contains a homestead called Sundial where the mother Rob grew up, and where I'm assuming, based off what the author was hinting at, something maybe tragic happened at some point. Rob is taking her daughter out there because her daughter is collecting the bones of animals as well as talking to people that are not there. This is supposed to be kind of a thriller horror story revolving around motherhood, which is what that vlog was revolving around. And unfortunately, this book just did not work for me. I got, 66 or so pages into the book, and I put it down for a few days to read another book, and then I just decided I had no desire to return to this book. For some reason, I just couldn't connect to the story. I couldn't find myself caring about what was happening and what could have happened in the past, what was happening in the future. Absolutely zero interest in what was happening. The author just couldn't capture me with the story, and so I felt that I wasn't going to waste my time on it anymore. As for the first book that I actually finished this month, we had Heaven Official's Blessing Volume 4 by Mo Xiong Tong Xiu. This was also a prompt for Becca's Spookopoly. In fact, so far I've been doing a lot better at completing Becca's prompts than my own prompts. So we're definitely not on track to complete my TBR right now. But this was for most recently purchased, and this is a story that follows Readalong, and he was a beloved prince of a prosperous nation who at the age of 17 ascended to godhood. However, after he attempted to assist his kingdom during a time of war that escalated into a very tragic fall of his kingdom, he kind of became a god of misfortune and actually fell from heaven. At the beginning of this series, we follow him during his 3rd ascension, meaning he at some point ascended and fell again. And this time around, he is kind of trying to keep to himself. He spends most of his time in the mortal realm, working on his tiny shrine, as well as completing missions that includes fighting ghosts that are wreaking havoc on the mortal realm. Along the way, he comes across Hao Cheng, who is one of the most fearsome ghost kings. He is considered very evil. He killed a lot of other ghosts to get his status. A lot of the gods are telling Shilon that he needs to stay far away from Hao Cheng. However, Hao Cheng is incredibly devoted to Shilon, and this is an incredibly slow burn romance between the two of them. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I have to admit, it took me a little while to get into the series. It wasn't until book 3 where I fully got invested in the story, the characters, and their relationship. I would also say that that's kind of where things started to pick up a bit more. As you can tell by the cover of this book, the romance is starting to heat up a little bit. I have to admit, the majority of this book is not as spicy as the cover may indicate, but despite that, this is a series that just makes me laugh so much. I find that the series is completely hilarious. There is like a few running jokes throughout the series, like the fact that Shilon can't cook, and the fact that anyone who tries his food just like starts crying or just like passes out dead on the spot, and the fact that Hao Chen is like a terrible writer, and that Shilon was like trying to teach him, but when he saw his writing, he was like, Hao Chen, don't tell anyone I taught you, because like no association with all that. And I just think it's such a funny story, but it's also incredibly dark at times. Like there was stuff that happened in this book where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually kind of like disturbing kind of situation. So this is a 17+ a book, most likely due to the gore and horror that occurs within it, more so than because of any steamy scenes, but I am still having a great time and am thoroughly invested in the series and excited to continue with it. Up next, I completed a audiobook, and that's Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This doesn't apply to any prompts, but it was a book that I've had on hold for quite a while, so it popped in and I listened to it and I gave it 4.5 stars. I believe Part of Your World is the first book in this kind of companion duology. I gave that one 5 stars. So this one didn't hit quite as hard, but I did still really enjoy it, which I'm really glad about, because I feel like a lot of people didn't like this book, or you know, they were disappointed in it compared to the first book, but I had a great time with this. In this book, we are following Brianna, and she was one of the BFFs of the girl in the first book, and she is still working at the hospital, and at this point is hoping to take over the leadership position that is now empty due to her friend going off and living her romance dreams. However, at the beginning of this book, she finds out that they are actually holding off on giving the position to her because a new doctor has come to the ER, and they just want to give him time to get to know the staff so that the staff know that he is an option to get voted for this position. And she was like, wait, excuse me? So you're just gonna not give me this position in hopes that they'll give it to him? So obviously when she meets him, the two of them are not getting off on the best foot. It also doesn't help that our love interest, Jacob, has pretty extreme social anxiety, and so their first encounter was a little awkward, and he definitely came off as a bit rude. To kind of smooth things over, Jacob decides to write her a letter, and then the two of them start writing back and forth, and eventually they end up in a fake dating situation because Jacob's brother is marrying his ex-girlfriend, and everyone thinks he has a problem with it, but he doesn't. But he feels like he needs a fake girlfriend to kind of prove to his family that he's moving on. So a messy situation, to be sure. I thought that this book had a great sense of humor. I had a lot of fun with it. Once again, I was living, laughing, loving, living my best life while reading this book. I will say that I thought that the anxiety representation was pretty good. I do have some social anxiety, luckily not at the level that Jacob does, but some of the thought processes and spirals that he went down, I found rather relatable, and I don't know if other people maybe found that to be a bit annoying. I don't know, I haven't read other reviews for why people didn't like it, but I hope not. As a person with anxiety, like, excuse me if my behavior annoys you. But I thought it was well done, and I felt like I could really relate to him as a character. I also, once again, got a bit emotional with this book, just like I did with the first one. Brianna is dealing with the trauma that comes from having toxic relationships with the men in her life, both her father and her ex-husband, who had spent a good chunk of their marriage cheating on her, and kind of watching her try to be in a relationship while constantly assuming that at some point he's going to pull the same tricks that all the other men in her life have pulled, was hard, and I definitely felt for her throughout the story, and I thought it was really well done. So fun time, but also a emotional time. My favorite kind of romance, perfectly balanced. I also thought that I think there was only like one sex scene in here, but it was pretty well done. So yes, 4.5 stars is well deserved. Up next, we have the other book that I read in that vlog, and this one, on the other hand, worked out perfecto compared to the DNF, and that is The Push by Ashley Audrain. And this has kind of a similar concept to Sundial in that it's a thriller revolving around motherhood. In this book, we are following Blythe, and she is in a very loving marriage and is very excited to give birth to her first daughter. However, when her daughter is born, instantly something doesn't feel right. She has trouble connecting to her daughter. Her daughter very much constantly wants the presence of her father. She doesn't seem to really want anything to do with her mother. In fact, she seems to be almost aggressive and violent towards her mother, and Blythe is struggling to kind of be the mother that her husband is clearly expecting her to be, while dealing with a daughter that is nothing like she expected her daughter to be. So this book deals a bit with what you can consider a postpartum depression, but make it a bit more extreme. Eventually, Blythe has a son and instantly connects to him and loves him, and he loves her, and everything is going right, and she's seeing what it could be, which is starting to make her wonder if, despite her husband constantly putting the blame at her feet, that maybe there is something wrong with her daughter and that it's not just her. Eventually, something very tragic happens, and our mother is really having to look at her daughter and look at herself in the mirror to see exactly what the heck is going on. The way that this book is written is we kind of start off in the prequel with Blythe showing up at her husband's house with a packet of papers, kind of outlining everything that happened during the time that they were together and even after, which I thought was really interesting because we got to see her write about this experience with the help of hindsight. We also got flashes to her time with her mother, as well as flashes all the way back to her mother's childhood. In all cases, the mothers did not want to be mothers, were not capable of being mothers, but were very much locked into this position, and we very much saw the damage that came from that. If you want deeper thoughts on this and possibly have it better worded than what I'm saying right now, I feel like I have so much to say about this book that to try to condense it all doesn't quite work so well, but I definitely suggest checking out that vlog because I have quite a bit to say about this book. But overall, I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. The second I picked it up, I did not want to put it down. I think I read it in 2 days. Not that it's a super long book, but this was during the work week kind of situation. Like, I was at work all day, and I was going to the gym, and I was still like every free moment I had, I was like picking this book up. It was so addictive, so well written. I thought that the pacing was perfect. It had a great flow to it. I thought it was very subtle but insidious. I thought that our villain, the child, was just such a little monster, yet she was also incredibly complex, and her relationship with her mother had its ups and its downs, mostly downs, but you still saw some moments of sweetness between them, which added humanity to the child, which made her faults even more disturbing. So this book was very emotional. It dives very deep into the ugly truth of grief and desperation, and you definitely get to experience some gaslighting in here, so it's very frustrating, but I thought that the way the story ended was perfect. So 5 out of 5. I know that pretty much anyone who reads this book that I've heard about loves it. So if you haven't read it yet, get on that because this book was incredible. Up next, I read a book on my Kindle, and that is Cam Fan by Danielle Kelly. And this was just a relatively short, fun, smutty romance. I think I also completed this one in a couple days. In this book, we are following Oliver, and he is now at college, and for the first time being away from his small town, feels that he can kind of explore his queerness a bit. However, he is a little scared to actually approach men and have sexual encounters with them. So he starts by watching live shows, cams, I don't know what they're called, which is pretty much when people perform live in front of a camera and people can view it. He ends up watching Justin, who goes by the name Sebastian, and is instantly taken with him. So he starts interacting with them online, and eventually he feels like maybe he's becoming too obsessed, so he tries to pull away, but Justin's not having that, so he asks Oliver if he would like to perform with him on a camera, therefore offering pretty much to kind of take his virginity and to kind of let him know what's out there kind of situation. Yeah, there's not much else plot-wise going on. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I thought that the characters were so sweet. I absolutely loved them both. The thing I will say is that there was a lot of smut in this, and sometimes I feel like there was a little bit too much. I definitely need a bit of balance, which is why I probably feel like I wouldn't absolutely love erotica books, to be honest. But I also felt like the steamy scenes were maybe a little too detailed, a little bit too wordy, where kind of like about halfway through, I almost started to lose interest in them. So, I mean, if you do like detailed and long smutty scenes, then this is definitely the book for you. To me, I had a fun time with it, but at other times I felt like maybe it was just a little bit too much. The next 2 books I'm going to review together because they're from the same series, and I honestly don't have too much to say about them, and that is Perfect World by Ria Ruga, volume 6 and 7. This is a series that I've just gradually been making my way through. It is a contemporary romance manga in which we are following a woman who is reunited with her high school crush and decides to start up a relationship with him. As you can tell, since they had last met, he has been in an accident and has suffered from a spinal cord injury. I would say that if you want a book that focuses very heavily on disability, this is the series. At this point, I think I gave volume 6 2.5 stars and volume 7 3 stars because I went into this wanting a romance between the characters, but they're not together right now. And in fact, they haven't been together for a few volumes at this point, and I just feel like at this point it's getting too repetitive. It's being drawn out too much. I went in this for a romance, and I feel like I'm just not getting that. For disability representation, it really is great, which is why I will go ahead and continue with the series probably for a couple more volumes. If they don't get back together in the next couple volumes, I'm honestly probably going to go ahead and just give up at this point. But I am over halfway through the series. I think there's only 12 volumes, so I don't want to like really quit. But I have to admit, the fact that they are just not a romantic couple and we're not watching the trials and tribulations of a actual couple that are together and facing the world with a disability is a bit disappointing. But like I said, if you're looking for representation with disability, I think that they're doing a pretty good job considering I'm not. Own voices, keep that in mind. All right, and for the final book, we have another audiobook, and that is Final Girls by Riley Sager. And I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. In this book, we are following Quincy, and she is a final girl. This means that she went through an event where a lot of people died, and she was the sole survivor. She is one of 3 final girls, and at the beginning of this book, one of the final girls ends up dead, and the other final girl ends up at Quincy's front door, checking in on her to make sure that she isn't going to follow the other final girl into the grave. Gave this 3.5 stars because of the ending. I will say that this book was a very slow process for me. I am feeling a little slumpy, so that may have played into my experience with the book, but there was honestly a couple times where I was just like, what if I just DNF this book because I'm just not really feeling it. However, I stuck with it, and I'm really glad because that ending was excellent. I would say that like 85% of the book was like 2.5, 3-star material, but the ending was definitely like a high 4 stars, which I find a little funny because I've read 4 Riley Sager books. I read Home Before Dark, in which I really enjoyed all of the book except for the ending. Then I read Lock Every Door, in which I liked the whole book. Then I read The House Across the Lake, in which I liked none of the book. And now I have read Final Girls, in which I did not like the beginning, but I really like the end. So every combination of how you could like a book so far, I have experience with Riley Sager. So he's not, you know, a reliable author for me, but he's definitely one I will probably keep trying, at least for a couple other books. My problem with this book, with the beginning of the book, is just that I did not like the behavior or actions of our character. I understand that she is a girl with a lot of trauma who has been pretending that she doesn't have a lot of trauma for a long time, and then this tornado of a girl comes into her life and kind of causes her to face the fact that she is not normal and she is not okay. But I just couldn't sympathize with the character and ended up just feeling annoyed with her actions and honestly the actions of most of the people around her. I will also say that I spent most of this book being like, it's so obvious what happened. And then when we got to the ending, I was sitting there looking real stupid because I was completely wrong. And so that's why I have to give that ending a 4-star, because it definitely took me by surprise. So decent book, excellent ending, 3.5 stars. All right, guys, so those are all the books that I have read. Let's talk real quick about the books that I still need to get through. I forgot to mention that The Push was another prompt for Becca's Bookopoly, and that was a mood read. And Cam Fan was also another prompt for Becca's Bookopoly, as in Candy Corn, just a very sweet, no plot, just vibes book. It is also a book for my TBR, which was to read a queer contemporary. The 2 books that I'm currently working on are for prompts for my TBR game, and the first is Authority by Jeff Vandermeer. This was for the prompt of Sci-Fi Continue a Series. I am almost done with this book. I was hoping to finish it yesterday, and honestly, I don't think I'll finish it today. A miracle could happen. I'm on page 256. I am having a decent time with this book. I'm assuming that it'll probably be like a 3.5 star. Like I said, I'm feeling a little slumpy, and unfortunately, I think that is affecting my reading experience. For my audiobook, I am currently 38-ish% through Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and this is for the prompt horror thriller mystery written by a Hispanic author. Once again, feeling kind of lukewarm about this book, but we are going to push through. Once I finish those two books, I will still have 2 prompts for my TBR game that I need to complete. The first is a fantasy that starts with the letter N, and I will be reading a Novice Dragoneer by E.E. Knight for that. And then I have the horror thriller mystery that is a seasonal read, and I will be reading The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates for that. As for Becca's Bookopoly, I have 2 more prompts for that, and those are honestly the 2 books that I'll be picking up after Authority, because I will be doing a vlog for these 2. The first is There's Nothing I Like Better Than Revenge, which is a revenge story, so I will be reading The Reich by Lily Mayne for that. And then the other one is They Are Burning All the Witches Even If You Aren't One, which is kind of a book with witchy, occult, or cult vibes, and I will be reading Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White for that. If I have time, technically The Mask Falling, Samantha Shannon, is a book that I'm reading with the Bookstara crew. The live show for this book discussion is on the 27th. Am I optimistic? No. This is a chunky book, and it's a series that I feel kind of lukewarm about, so I never read it very fast, but I will be trying to get to it. But like I said, I'm not super optimistic, but I'm keeping it in mind. I'm keeping it in mind. One more thing before I go, I'm taking part in Seriously series, which is hosted by Bookstara. This is going through the end of the year, and pretty much you just get to progress as you complete books within a series. I will go ahead and link her announcement video down below so you can get those rules. You can, of course, still join. We still have through the end of December, and I just wanted to let you know how far along I am at this point. As you can see, I skipped some spaces. I hope I'm doing the rules right. I'm not 100% sure, but as you can see, I skipped some spaces because reading yours truly allowed me to finish a series, therefore jumping to the next corresponding spot for that genre. At this point, only Authority and The Reich are continuations of the series that I will be able to add to this board this month, unless I do happen to get to The Mask Falling. So I will probably try to focus on this more in November and December. Alright guys, so those are the books I've read so far, and the massive amount of books I still need to read by the end of the month. Let me know down below how your month is doing, and if there's any books that you're still hoping to get to. Of course, if you're taking part in any readathons, I'd love to know how you're doing so far. As always, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!